Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Build a Beast. We are coming at you sharing an elite coaching journey. We've been hitting the 8 basic pillars of mastering the energy equation of how exactly we make the most of our time and make the most of our energy. And we've been learning from our resident star coach who has been an absolute master of this energy equation. And today we're going to be chatting about immunity, immune function, and how critical that is to stay healthy in a long-term, sustainable way, which is so relevant in a normal context, but even more relevant considering the context today. So stick around for today's episode of Build a Beast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and bring in our star coach of the season. He is a former NHL elite performance coach that's now transformed his career and his passion into helping executives and entrepreneurs and business owners and people of all walks of life essentially master the energy equation. Here he is back again to share his wisdom and insights, folks. Please welcome Justin Roethlingshoefer.
Hello. How are we doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Always a pleasure to catch up with you week to week here. Appreciate having you here, man.
It's been spectacular so far, and I'm excited to dive in today because we're all entering into what is now called cold and flu season, although we have just been in a year-long of COVID season. And the more that we can chat about immune function and the way in which it relates to us, the better. Because so often we hear, oh, how's your immunity? What do we need to take for immunity? We need to do chai tea in the morning, or we need to do this, or we need to use tart cherry juice or beet juice, or we need to have a smoothie first thing. But why? Why are these things helping us? What is our immune function after? And we keep going back to what is the purpose? What is the premise for us? What is our singular focus? And it's HRV. That is our single most important tool that we have to remember that's what we're using. HRV is what's going to drive us to create that longevity and create that key metric that's going to help derive everything. Because if we don't have one thing that we're looking at, it creates confusion. It creates complexity, and complexity kills progress all the time. It's the same in your business. It's the same in your life. It's the same in your fitness. It's the same in you name it. Yep. And so the moment that we open everything up, the moment that we open up our thought process as to what are we trying to do, what are we trying to focus on, it's going to make things so much more clear for us as to how we're operating on a day-to-day. So I'm going to actually share my screen here with you guys. We're going to draw for a little bit because, and we're going to draw in a very unique way today. When we're looking at, and what we're talking about when it comes to immune function, we need to know that immune function in terms of HRV, it all comes back to what? Stress. And when we're looking at stress, it is a ultimate indicator of how our body's handling it. So if we're looking at an HRV curve, and I'll show you Travis's live after, we have these points over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in 6 days. Okay. But you notice that HRV is up, and then it's down, and then it's up, and then it's down, and then it's up. So it's varying all the time, which it should. That's not a negative thing. That's exactly what we would expect. But when we see a downturn in HRV, and we see 3 days in a row where our HRV decreases, that's an immediate sign that our body is no longer handling the stress that we are under well, that it's becoming overflowed. So if we had a cup analogy, the stress in our body is starting to overflow from the cup, and we are ultimately needing assistance or help to make sure that our body is not being more susceptible to things. So if we think about it as a door, okay, our door is usually closed. As our HRV is high, this door is closed. It's shut. No bacteria, no viruses, no flus, no illness is getting in. Okay, door's locked. But as the HRV begins to drop and drop again and drop again, the energy that our body is feeding is going other places. It's going to recover ourselves from workouts. It's going to be brought to our brains so that we're having a greater ability to handle the mental capacity that's going on with us. It's going to our muscles and recovering those things that we've been doing. And so it starts to open up the door. Open up the door. And over the course of 3, 4, 5 days of a decrease, our door becomes wide open. And all of these things can start to come in and attack our immune system, which is not at optimal par. And so all we're doing when we see this and we start to make a notion of, hey, I should take the appropriate supplements. And this again goes back to your DNA test, Travis, which we're going to dive into. So you heard me say something, the immune function support system. If I could spell. Support system. It always comes back to, what does your body respond to? So a lot of people take vitamin C, a lot of people take vitamin D, but when we're talking about supplements that are only we take when we see that 3-day decrease, it's echinacea, it is vitamin C, and then tart cherry juice. And this is just without any understanding of the person, without any understanding of the DNA results, without any understanding. This is just like an overarching view that 90% of people could utilize and see the door slowly start to close even once the HRV drops, because you're giving the immune system support and what it needs to be able to fight that off. Now, if we were to look at it this way as well, and we're going to use a normal distribution curve here. Most often, people have what we call a gold zone that's very small. Why? Because we don't expose ourselves to much. We don't expose ourselves to the elements. We don't get close in proximity to one another, especially after coming after because of COVID, because of quarantine. We don't get outside much. We aren't in environments that are that have other germs that our body has to create immunity for. And when we don't do this, we either end up understressed or we end up overstressed. And this is our immune system. Remember this. So if all of a sudden we're in our house, we're doing these things, but we don't get the proper sleep, we maybe worked out really hard, we've been under stress at work, and then we go to the grocery store and we touch something that somebody sneezed on, we get a bacteria virus. Well, because that door has been opened, right? We're in a decreased HRV point after 3 days. Why? Because our sleep has been poor. The other 8 that we've talked about, we haven't worked out very much because we haven't had the time. Our diet has been like fast food diet, whatever's around us.
Mm-hmm.
Our hydration hasn't been very good. Well, now, like I said, we're opening up this door. And if we don't give our immune function the support it needs, along with starting to check these boxes off, well, lo and behold, because our gold zone is so small, we're going to pop right into
Shoot
overstress,
right up. Yeah.
and we're going to get sick. And that's what it leads to, because our door's open. But if we start to expose it to these things in small doses, and then give ourselves this bigger window to grow, well, lo and behold, look what happens. That gold zone starts to grow as well. And we'll make it a different color so you guys can depict that. And we keep on doing that. Well, all of a sudden, our gold zone looks this large, right? And so we can be sleep deprived. We can be living over, we can be living over here. We can be a little sleep deprived. We can be a little under exercised. We can have a fast food meal. And we just live in this gold zone where our body fights it off. Those are the people that you're like, man, how's that guy never get sick?
Yeah.
I see this guy licking the floor all the time, and like he's never sick. How does that happen? Well, it's because his gold zone, that we call it, is so large. He's so resilient. His body has such a massive capacity to handle it. And it all comes back to those habits that control HRV. And so when we're looking at this, we have to be cognizant of what we're exposing ourselves to, what we're really truly looking at. And that's the key as to how we're able to, again, make this sustainable long term, so that we're not doing this and exposing ourselves to things that are ultimately going to hurt us in the long run, because we're wanting to stay away from anything that's bad.
Amen. No, and I think yes, simplifying it with some of those simple rules again is what works for me, because it's so difficult to see. It's like this invisible. I feel good. I'm kind of sick, not sick, but we'll see in the HRV scores. Like you can tell those moments typically correlate with the HRV dropping. You start to
100%.
feel muckier or foggier. So I am grateful to have a single KPI for life.
You know what? Like, I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many people have been struggling with the exact same thing. I'm going to share my screen again with you guys here. I did a little experiment. I sent this email out today. I've done a little experiment. I've been wearing 6 wearables for the last 3 weeks. And here's the wild thing, okay? My max heart rate, my average heart rate, my calorical expenditure, my strain or recovery score, however you want to look at it, and my REM sleep and my deep sleep. Okay? Look at this. This is what's wild. This is the range of all things who are considering themselves gold standard. Okay? I wore a heart rate strap as well, and that's what I consider gold standard. I wore 6 different wearables plus a heart rate strap, which was I had as the gold standard. Max heart rate in different workouts, and this is just a range. 147 to 182. The heart rate strap, 182. Average heart rate, 124 to 141. Heart rate strap was 139. Calorical expenditure, 430 to 810. Guys, 810, that's 400 calories difference in like single workouts.
Wow.
We come here, the heart rate strap, 749. And again, these are the gold standards that I'm going off of, because nothing's more accurate than a heart rate strap. Strain recovery scores. Again, differed by 27%. Okay? Sleep, REM, anywhere from 22 minutes to 2 hours and
Wow.
17 minutes. And then deep sleep, 17 minutes to 3 hours and 5 minutes. These are the differences of all the wearables and all the trash information that we're pulling off of these things, that we're saying like, this is the gold standard.
Wow.
This is the gold standard. This is what people are making decisions off of. But here's the wild thing. The top 3 wearables. What do you think the HRV scores were over those 3 weeks?
At least more consistent. I don't know, maybe 10% variability between them. I wouldn't know the actual
They differed
scores.
by numbers of 1 to 3.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I did an 89, the others might give me an 88 or an 87 or a 90. That's what it started to look like. So what is the conclusion? HRV is the gold standard metric, the only thing that matters, because what does it do? It measures stress on the body and how we are responding. And when we know how we're responding, what do we go back to? We go back to those items 1 through 8. Okay? They're our checklist. 1, movement. Did we move? 2, hydration. Did we get it in? 3, nutrition. Did we follow our rules? 4,
Yep.
sleep. Did we do what we needed? 5, immune function. Did we see a 3-day decrease in HRV, and did we get our supplementation in? Did we do what we needed to for our body? 6, environment. 7, self-care. Did we spend the time we needed? And 8, which we're going to do with Elise in a 2-part series the next 2 weeks, was mindset.
Yep.
And wait till you see the effect of HRV with mindset. Wow. That's the key here. And all I'm trying to make this aware to you guys, and we'll come back to the screen, but all I'm trying to make aware to you guys here is that it doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be convoluted. It can come down to one metric, and one metric can guide us in all of our choices, but our choices are vast, and the impact we have is vast. And by looking at immune function, by looking the way that our immune function is working, it all comes under the stress in which we're applying. And when the stress is applied at a high level, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We need to change the conception that we need to run away from stress, but rather we need to seek stress. And we need to seek stress in a rhythmic fashion. Times of high stress, but then we need to allow ourselves to recover and let times of low stress come in. Then times of high stress again. And those stressors in which we apply come of different ways. Thomas was talking about he was trying to walk 10 to 15,000 steps a day. That's great. But I guarantee you, if Thomas tried to run or walk 10 to 12,000 steps a day on day 1, his HRV would have plummeted for the following probably 3 or 4 days, because it's a stressor that he's not used to.
Mm-hmm.
The problem Thomas is going to find is that his body's going to start to plateau, and getting 10 to 12 to 15, it's no longer going to be a strain for him. He's going to continue to do it. So you're going to have to figure out a different way in which to change that. And the way in which you're going to change that is change the intensity at which you're walking those 10 to 12,000 steps, or 12,000 steps.
Nice.
That's it. And so you can change the intensity and the strain in which things are happening, so that ultimately you can start to perform again better, and you see the adaptation happen. And that's the same thing with immune function. That's why when we see ourselves drop, when we see when we see all of this happen, that's the change. And I mean, Thomas says he's been doing it for 8 years. That's awesome. But I mean,
you're acclimated. But,
you're acclimated to it. It's something that you're just expecting to do 12 to 15,000 every single day now. Like that's your body expects that. It's not your gold zone when you were doing that was growing, but now it's no longer growing. It's not getting any bigger because you're not pushing yourself greater than that at all. Now, a simple way to change that or to add some adaptation, take 2,000 of those steps and do them at a higher intensity. Maybe you did 10,000 or 12,000 at the same walk. Do 2,000 at a jog, or do 2,000 on the elliptical at a greater pace, or do a stepper or something to that extent where you're now changing it. Again, staying focused on immune function here. It's what are you exposing yourself to? How are you growing that for yourself? And I know, Travis, I'm going to pull up your data here, but we look at this. And this is what I was talking about when it came to HRV. And I asked you over the last 2 weeks to get extremely focused on seeing yourself decrease in HRV for 3 days in a row. And by doing this, by having the awareness about this and being able to add change to anything, you never even got there. Like we see this, we had 1 decrease, we had 2 decrease, and then we popped back up. We had 1 decrease, we had 2 decrease, we popped back up. We had 1 down, we had to pop back up. 1 down, pop back up. And so that's okay. That's going to happen. What this tells me is that for you and your body, we have sought after a really great balance. And look, we had UPR. This was the highest H you have ever had over the course of our time together. And it happened on March 24th. So 7 days ago. Like it's great. The implementations, the things you are doing are creating this upward trajectory because you're looking after those little things. And we see it. I mean, your recovery score is 87%. We figured out, hey, those maybe aren't the most accurate numbers, but they're being looked at the same. What we know is your HRV. Your HRV is going in that right direction. It's trending in that upward direction. We'll pull it back over the 3 months, even show what I'm talking about here. But we see that upward trend line. You see this upward trend line. Now, do we go up and down the entire time? 100%. But look, if we were to draw that general trend line through the bulk of everything, right through, we're going in that upward direction phase. Upward direction. You cannot. We started with a 55 average. We now have a 63 average. We see that right there. When we started our first month, we were 55 as our average. We're now at 63. That is incredible, and it's seen in the way in which our energy is felt. Like you can be the dictator of that one, Travis.
Yeah, no, it was pretty obvious. I think I felt a little bit of that, like that fogginess, that weak, like pre-sickness weakness that at the bottom of that dip. So it wasn't 2 days or 3 days in a row, but it was starting a downward trend. And I did end up using, like it was an emergency immunity setup that had all of that and a little bit more extra. And that was it seemed to pop right back up the other day. I'm sure it could have been other stuff. I tried to exercise a bit more mindfully when I felt that way, but it was an immediate turnaround after you just using the simple. I think it was vitamin C and a few other like immunity things.
Yep, and that's the thing, is it's knowing when to do it. It's the timing of it. Because again, if we just go to these things, oh, I feel a little bit under the weather, or oh, I'm traveling, or this or that. We need to know when to apply these things. Because remember, go back to that open door example. Your door is closed when you're rocking at 94% HRV. You're sleeping well, you're feeling good, you're exercising, you're eating well, you're in the comforts of your home, your environment is great, you're getting your water in. There's no reason to not feel good. There's no reason to continue to add these vitamins that we're just ultimately peeing out at the end of the day, and you've got really expensive urine. What we want to make sure of is, we're dropping again. What is going on in our environment? What's going on around us that's creating this? And my door is opening up a little bit. Why? Because your body is maybe fighting something off. You are traveling and you are exposed to more germs and viruses and bacterias that your body's kicking out. Maybe you have worked out a little bit harder. Maybe you do have a little bit more stress on your plate. Maybe you are having to pack a truck and move and do something. Maybe there's a lot going on in your business. Whatever it may be, your body needs a little bit of a kick. It needs a little bit of help to close that door again. And lo and behold, look, we pop right back up. Now, do we fluctuate still? 100%. But we haven't seen that continual downward trend, which is not there simply because we're looking after what needs to be looked after.
Love it.
And it just goes back to that key point and that simple notion of one concept. And what's that one concept? 3-day decrease in HRV is telling us that there's something going on in our environment, something going on within our body, that it's not handling the stress we are under very well. And the moment that we can handle it in a better way, we're going to be able to optimize ourselves really, really well.
No, and that's really the key piece for me, is just setting the guidelines to be so simple that it's almost impossible to mess up or make an excuse for it. Because it was pretty simple for anybody joining in or wondering what exactly the setup was. It was basically just watch HRV. That was what we were going over earlier. All of the stuff that Justin had measured with different tools and whatever have a really wide range of data, except for HRV is the most consistent. So that was the most reliable metric, the only one I really kept an eye on. And then, yeah, it's very simple if it's going up or down because it's one single metric to measure. So very simple rules, simple setup is much needed for things to operate and come to life in my life, and I anticipate many other people are the same. What are the easiest, simplest rules I can have? And it worked. It's working well for me at the moment. We'll see how it tests. How the test stands through the winter and flu season, but definitely has been on a positive trajectory for me, man.
And it all comes back to that simplicity. Like I said, complexity kills dreams. Complexity kills progress. And the more one-dimensional we can be, the more simplistic we can be on something that is so individual, it's an automatic win. And I can't wait for you guys to have Elise come on next week and talk about the impact of the mindset and the way we think, the way in which we categorize things. Elise is you're doing an ELI test, an energy leadership index is what Elise calls it. And we're going to get the numbers on you. And that's what Elise is going to run you through next week and really go through this at a high level to bring the awareness to how you show up, to how you handle stress, to how you handle regular time or regular situations. So sympathetic or parasympathetic situations, and how you're reacting, how you're initiating things. And once we know that, you can also understand that. And we'll be able to correlate it right back to the way in which you show up and operate on a day-to-day basis. And that's the power of this whole thing, is when you know that one metric, if it's working for you or if it's not, wow, like how powerful is that? To be able to sit there and say, my body's handling everything I'm putting onto it, or it's not. It's that simple. And if it's not, where's my checklist? Which things am I doing? Which things am I not? Go back and frickin' own the things that you're not. Just own it.
Yep.
Own it and go. Because at that point, you're able to take action and implement at a very high pace.
Love it. Well, in the theme of taking action and implementation, we've been having our weekly simple homework assignments here, all about simplicity here. This week's we just went over the immunity setup. Keep an eye on HRV. We've gone over in the first initial episodes how to track that reliably. So the simple rule here was vitamin C, echinacea, and tart cherry.
You got it.
So
on a 3-day decrease only.
Okay. So it's a signal and a recovery is kind of the setup here for that one, and then jumping into mindset. What is the focus between here and now and then? Maybe that exam or
Yeah. So
some things to make note of.
yeah, so you guys will get your takeaways after next week on mindset, because Elise is actually going to do a 2-part series for you guys. And if you look at it, what'll end up happening is for you, we want to take a look. Your takeaway will be on the immune function side. So if you see a 3-day decrease, because by now you're hopefully tracking HRV. If you're not tracking HRV, really missing out, because that's, again, we found that it's the number one metric we can be tracking. It's the most consistent, it's the most reliable, it's the one that really you can get anywhere as well. And so by looking at that, we know that that's something we need to do. So 3-day decrease in HRV, that signals the need for some type of immune support function. That's going to be your echinacea, your tart cherry juice, and your vitamin C. Till you see that 1-day increase in HRV, then we can get rid of it. At that point, we go back to the same habits that we've been rolling at thus far. And so that's the simplicity of what we're asking and what I want you to do over this next week, and bring the awareness to that.
Cool. Nice. No, simple enough for me. That's what makes it work. I think it's a bottomless pit when you get into all of the different theories and books and doctor this and doctor that said this and all of that. So as always, man, deeply appreciate your insights, and then not only your insights and intelligence, but your ability to be able to translate that into something just super simple, super digestible, is an invaluable skill, not only in this space, but just in general communication and life. So it's been awesome to absorb these lessons one little bite at a time each week, man. It's really appreciated.
You got it, man. Absolutely. I love it. Anytime I can help provide value in this way, or be able to, again, support people and make things a little bit more clear and understanding, it's great.
Agreed. Yeah, and this has been a amazing journey thus far. So anybody that has been joining, but it's been a little bit late to the party, we do have the full journey tracked. So we'll be sharing recaps and highlights and synopsis and everything. But if you want to catch up and join the journey next week, please do hunt down the prior episodes, and you can kind of check in on all of those 8 pillars that we were mentioning, and we can kind of all sync up and get on the same page here, leveling up one week at a time. But that does it for this week. We'll be jumping into mindset, the power of your mindset, and how that will equate to the energy you have each week next week. So thank you, Justin, and thank you to everybody joining us. Appreciate you so much. We'll catch you next week on our episode of Build a Beast.